Diddy, can you kick us off?
Hello, good evening. Welcome, everybody. I think Robin's got a little bit of a problem with, but today we have Block Talk, which is live from NFT Week in Miami. Everybody's looking fantastic, and we've joined by Aesthetic, Michael, Reza, and the lovely Ray, and Robin looking absolutely there as well. So welcome to the Women of BSV Block Talks with Robin deLisser. And your microphone, Robin, is it working?
I believe so. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So we are here live at NFT Week Miami. I have lost my voice from working so many hours for the last few months. So I'm going to probably communicate mostly through our thread, but I'd like everybody to go ahead and introduce themselves. I met Reza from NFTPay here the other night, and we had a very interesting debate about NFTs. Should an NFT have the entire digital asset on chain, or is there a liability if there's just a hashtag on chain? And he brought up some really valuable points. So I thought this would make for a very conversation here live from NFT Week Miami. So I will let Reza introduce himself.
Hey everyone, my name is Reza. I'm co-founder and chief product officer of NFTPay. We are a payment solution for NFTs. We allow NFT projects, marketplaces, GameFi to accept credit cards and other payment methods for the purchase of NFTs. No wallet needed. So really trying to simplify the process of buying NFTs for the masses and to bring more people into Web3. And thank you, Robin, for bringing us on. Mike, my co-founder and CEO, is here as well. Definitely had a really interesting debate and excited to continue that live and on video. And Mike, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. What's up, everyone? How's it going? I'm Mike, CEO and co-founder of NFTPay. We're going to go on a wild thrill today. Thank you, Robin, so much for having us. Let's go.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. All right, Mr. Opulus, let's hear from you. Who are you? What is Opulus?
Hey, everybody. What's up? My name is Memo. Did you get the memo? I'm a blockchain solution architect, and I've been in the space for the past 5 years building end-to-end solutions. So in short, I'm a problem solver for any kind of product technology puzzle. I'm also a brand ambassador for Opulus. Opulus is a decentralized platform where musicians can raise money by selling their master rights to a song. So instead of going to a record label giving away 70%, you can now give, for example, 50% of your music rights, and every time you make money through YouTube, Spotify, and you name all the other platforms, you and your fans can earn money. So it brings the fans and the artists together. There are other products such as Vault, where it's like music catalogs, so you can own part of that music catalog. Think in terms of like music ETF, and you will have an exchange where you can exchange those MFTs, which is a new asset class, music fungible tokens. So you can buy those music rights and back and forward. And last but not least, music advances. As the name says, you can get an advance for your music. So that's me, Memo Static, representing Opulus. Thank you.
Excellent. Rachel, Ray, as I like to call her, you want to go?
Sure. I'm working on a couple projects. One of the main projects is called Molly Match. It's an NFT game. We are half and half. We have about 3 women in it, running the game, and then 2 other guys, and it's really fun. We have another NFT project called Real World BSV, and we're making some changes to it. So we hope everyone can, earn some money. That was the main reason we launched a site.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, Rachel is a software developer. She's one of our Women of PSV, Women of Blockchain group. She's been a core member of the group for the entire time it's existed, as Diddy is. Diddy's actually the co-founder of the Women of Blockchain group. So Ray's gets an interesting perspective because she's definitely technical and a builder, an entrepreneur. So very cool background. Diddy, you have not introduced yourself, darling. It's your turn.
No, I do I look after the YouTube channel and I video edit and stuff, and I've just come back from a field full of horses, so I'm a woman of BSV, and I have some artwork which is some music which is NFTs as well. So very interesting what you were talking about, your NFT music platform. So nice to meet you all.
Awesome. All right, I'm so glad you bailed me out. I know you were on a horse a few hours ago, and this was totally not. As anybody who's in media or journalist, which I don't know that any of us really consider ourselves journalists, but in a way we're you've got to be able to jump on an opportunity and seize it when it's here. So I wanted to make sure that we were live streaming from NFT Week Miami. As everybody in my audience knows, I just live stream from NFT Week LA. And most of us, or at least I'll be in NFT Week New York City in another week or so. So wanted to jump on the opportunity and talk with these very interesting gentlemen that have obviously entrepreneurs and have businesses in the NFT space. So the reason this came about, and I hope you guys can hear me because again, I have no voice. Reza and I got into a conversation here at the conference in Miami, and I argued, first of all, Robin being obnoxious that she is, I said, some of these guys get on stage and they don't know what the hell they're talking about. So Reza was very polite and gracious and was like, okay, give me an example. And I said, well, I was emceeing a stage and somebody was late to the stage, so I was killing time. And so I took one of the companies that had talked about their company and they were talking about, minting NFTs. And so I said, oh, what platform are you building on? And it was, of course, ETH. And I said, oh, I'm using Polygon to mint. And so I said, I'm going to put you on the spot if you don't mind. And the guy was a wonderful, gracious, he entertained this idea. And I said, are you putting the entire asset of an NFT, a digital asset, on chain? Or are you putting a hash? And he was completely bewildered. And the entire audience looked at him and there was a long, awkward silence. And he said, oh, yeah, it's on chain. And I'm like, this is a really wildly misunderstood topic. And I think it's super important, especially if you actually have a piece of classic art or a real art or any form of art, right? Whether it's music or painting or whatever it might be, if it really does have value, right? If it's $1 million or $100 million, do you want a JPEG on a hashtag on chain, or do you want the entire digital asset on chain so that you have provenance? We have verified identity. We have a time-stamped immutable record showing provenance that this asset actually belonged to NFTPay or it belonged to Reza. And if it gets stolen or hacked or taken, you have that entire provenance and that, all of those features that you have when something's on chain versus having a JPEG on chain. And Reza made some really interesting points and he actually stumped me. So I loved that because I was like, I haven't thought about that part. So Reza, do you want to kind of take over where we left that debate the other day and talk about how it's become a community platform and that kind of stuff?
Yeah. I mean, I think that in many ways, what Robin said brings up a really good point that you do want the assets on chain as much as you can. I think that the caveat there is what is the asset, right? And can that asset be put on chain, right? So, NFT, the way I think about it is it's really just a way to define ownership. And the ownership of what is the most important part. If the piece of art, if an NFT ownership is about a piece of art, then maybe it makes sense to put it on chain fully if there's a way to do that. But what we see is that a lot of the really valuable NFTs are actually not about a piece of art. It's not about the picture that represents the NFT. It's actually about what you get behind the scenes. So an example is Bored Ape Yacht Club. Yes, you get a picture of an ape, but also you get access to the club. You get access to events. You get these airdrops of other NFTs, of being able to play a game. That stuff is not about on chain. It's about what you get because you hold this NFT. And that kind of membership concept, the being able to enter a club because of this NFT you hold, is really about what you can do off chain. And the on chain mechanism is really about verifying that it's you that hold it. I think that's a really key part about a lot of where NFTs are going that people don't really recognize, is that it's this other element that's really important. It's this other element that brings the key value to a project or to the NFT that you hold, more so than just the pure art of it. And then if you look at like some of the art that is valuable, for instance, the art blocks ecosystem. Well, what about that makes it really valuable? Part of it is because you actually hold the NFT holds the code for that piece of art. So, for instance, like some of these art block NFTs, they change based on the time you mint it. They change based on your own user interaction with it, and all of that is held within the NFT. I'm a little fuzzy on some of the details, but as I understand it, with them, like the NFT gives you ownership of the code that created that image. And that's a case where art blocks are valuable, but you're getting something more than just the picture. You're getting the rest of the experience with it. So I think that's where we left off, Robin, and we can kind of kick off and go deeper from there, I think.
Yeah, I can expand on that if you guys would like to. I'm gonna move around here. So yeah, pretty much I agree. I think it really depends on the use cases, right? It makes sense to have, I guess, certain mini aspects, pixel, maybe on the chain. However, I think the biggest problem where I see as a blockchain solution architect is the educational aspect. So anybody who can somehow go to an explorer and read what's happening on chain knows who's the owner one way or another. But that's like maybe 1% who is involved in that. So talking about 99%, there isn't. So I think if we can figure out how to make it easier for people to understand the aspect of ownership and how it actually, by owning, right, the private key to a public key, if we can overcome that understanding in a very easy way, that will help to showcase, true ownership, and then all those off-chain benefit utilities are an add-on. That's how I see is the best way to overcome that. And yeah, to say it one more time, there's a big educational gap we have to close, and it comes to people like us. Okay, how do we do that, right? And it's an open question. Like I invite everybody to explore that aspect too. Okay, how do we do that? Close that understanding. Yeah, I'll pass it over to anybody who would like to comment on this.
I'll jump in for a sec. Can you guys hear me okay? Yes. Sounds good. All right.
Yeah, you sound.
So yeah, to kind of expand on what Reza was saying too, when someone buys a home in real life, a house, real estate, they get a deed. And when you get the deed, you don't get like a piece of paper with like a house on top of it. you get the deed, and that's your form of record keeping. Now, the NFT technology and the blockchain, what it's there to do, if you buy a home on the blockchain via an NFT, you're going to get the data that says you own the home. You're not going to get the home on the blockchain. So I think that's kind of the best way to look at it, is like, you don't necessarily need the asset of whatever you're buying, whether it's a home, a piece of art, a piece of digital art. You don't need that to necessarily be on the blockchain. What you need is the ownership record of what you actually own on the blockchain. And that's kind of my 2 cents on that.
I think it's a good point. One of the things that, one of the use cases that kind of first stood out to me in blockchain and Bitcoin specifically is that land ownership, right? And it goes back to this idea about property rights. Like, this all comes down to property rights. Anything that you own in Bitcoin, any intellectual property, any digital asset, it's going to come down to property rights. And there have been, and land agreements, not the deed itself, but land agreements are tenable contracts. So you have these horrible stories in countries like Venezuela or Argentina, where families lived on this land for generations, and they farmed and they, had livestock, and it was their only source of income for generations. And the government came in and seized their land because it is a tenable contract. So these are the things that we're actually trying to solve for in Bitcoin, and create more rights for the sovereign individual. So I love the example that Michael
That's
gives
amazing.
about the deed, but it's also like it just makes me think about, okay, well then you're still going back to the argument of tenable contracts, and that's again like one of these huge things that makes me fall in love with Bitcoin, is because it's really trying to help the individual, the human.
Yeah, I mean, I think that risk is always going to be there to some level, right? Because going back to what makes an NFT valuable, it's like it's based on the project, right? Bored Ape Yacht Club's only as valuable as the fact that Yuga Labs keeps doing stuff with Bored Ape. So, there's inherently, unless it's something. I mean, Bitcoin, you could argue a different story, but when it comes to NFTs, it's really about what the value you're getting from it, and usually there's an organization or something behind the scenes that's helping to push it. So, have we fully solved the Venezuela risk? Like in the land risk, maybe not quite yet, because it's based on continued development, but it's not. But for sure, someone just can't take that NFT from you, right? Like if Yuga's still building, they're not going to be able to take my ape away from me, inherently, right? Like,
I mean,
so I think
but it has happened. It has happened. Lots of people have lost their NFTs. They got hacked.
Right.
The company got hacked, right? So I mean, it definitely does happen.
Yeah, but it's not coming from like in this case, I would call like Yuga or the government in a way.
Right, of course. But we're still
yeah.
talking about this was a liability. It's still the same argument, right? Regardless of
Yeah.
who stole your property, it's a liability.
Yeah, true. But as a community, you can also, like when some of these apes were stolen, on OpenSea or on Rarible, for instance, they would put some kind of warning, so that any sale of that NFT was people actually could see, oh, this is a stolen one, or this one might be stolen. So as a community, there's been some stuff where we can kind of organize, and because it's on the blockchain, you're able to track that a little bit better. So you'd be able to be like, oh, this is one that was taken from the wallet that was part of whatever hack it was. So that there's a lot of improvements. There's a lot of work that people get hacked, but at least we're getting a little bit more visibility in the way that like the farmer who got their land taken by the government isn't getting, because you're not because they're maybe not on the news or something, because the government hides that. So I think we're getting better, but not perfect.
Real quick, I'm about to jump off. I have to moderate another panel. So thank you so much for having me, and all the best. I think, again, just to piggyback on what I said, the educational aspect, it will be huge. So that being said, thank you so much. I appreciate everybody, and talk soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us, Memo. Make sure you share on social media, and we'll tag you so that everybody can see this later. Thanks for joining us. Good luck on stage.
Yes, same, guys. I'm out. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I can stay longer if we need to. If we want to.
I have a question for you, Reza.
Yeah.
How do you feel about people? So a lot of people really want to own their private keys. When you're developing NFTPay, how do a lot of people bring that up? Like they want to be able to see their keys clearly and be able to like have ownership of that.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's 2 or 3 or maybe more buckets of users and people in that space. So yes, a lot of people do want to own the private keys and keep the private keys, but I think to get expansion to the broader world, you need to have experiences that in some ways makes it simpler. And in some cases, making it simpler means doing like obfuscating the private key behind an email is what we do with when people use an NFTPay custodial wallet. You actually don't have your private key. We protect that with bank level security, and you can then access your account via email. And I started thinking about it almost like training wheels, right? Like the goal of that is not necessarily because we want everyone to never have a private key. I think having a private key is a really important part in terms of the long-term like safety of your assets. But for a lot of people who are coming into the space, that's kind of step 5. And there's a lot of steps that need to go to really get familiarity around how you protect your private key, because all the horror stories about the millions of dollars people lose because they lose a private key. I mean, that's scary for someone that's new. What is it like MetaMask? You have to write down your your seed phrase, but you can't put it online. So you have to put it write it on a piece of paper. But God forbid someone sees that piece of paper,
Right.
put it in a safe. Well, that's that's all well, in the ideal situation, but that's not. Ideal situations don't necessarily always, allow for great user experiences that can bring everyone involved. And so I think there's a balance, right? Maybe keep your main assets in something secure, but there's need and value when you're new to the space to have the email, have an ability. I forgot my password. Have someone reset it for me. That there's familiarity there with the banking system, familiarity with Web 2, and so I think bridging that gap is going to bring a lot more people into the space and have a great initial experience.
Yeah, got it. Right. Valid point. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, we had terrible audio. I still have kickback. Somebody else talk.
That's the yeah. I'm very interested in the NFTPay because
We lost Ray. She's back. There
sorry about that. I clicked on the wrong thing. It's really hard to get people to sign up for just a Bitcoin wallet. Like it's easier to say, hey, you can use a credit card to buy an NFT, which I think is great. But there are like a lot of users that I come across that I would say more of just like purist, where they want to be able to have like their their private keys and everything. But you're right. I think you want to aim for everyone that can buy easily, instead of just having to write down a 12-word phrase every time they log into multiple accounts. That can get pretty crazy for someone that's just just wants to buy one NFT.
Yeah, and that's sort of what we're going for, is that simplicity. But we do enable the ability to transfer out to your own non-custodial wallet, things like that. So that's why I think about like training wheels, right? Like, someone who's new in the space, they're going to buy their first NFT. They're going to hold it. They're going to get a taste of what it's like. And at some point they go, oh, I want to actually hold this in my own wallet. Now that I have my own wallet, that's when they transfer it out. And then for people, kind of OGs who maybe don't want to spend crypto, they want to buy the NFT with a credit card, they can transfer it right away to their non-custodial wallet. So there's that facility to support the new people, but also support kind of, you could say, fiat on-ramping almost, which technically not fiat on-ramp, but that ability to get into the space with a credit card and not have to stress about the crypto element while still using the non-custodial wallet.
Which is probably one of the biggest challenges onboarding on-ramps and off-ramps in any app, any Bitcoin utility that's out there, whether it's NFTs or not.
Yeah, and I would add to that and say, like, it's even more, what we find is it's even more complicated when you go to like longer tail chains, right? So, people have ETH, not necessarily people have, Algorand, or, which we've done a lot of projects on Algorand. That can be harder. Some of the layer 2s can be really expensive or really confusing. How do you bridge your ETH to get this other token? So even people experiencing the space, we can simplify that process of at least a purchase for, some of the other chains. Maybe it's a gaming chain that, is not necessarily, super liquid at the moment. So there's other elements like that can be really impactful when you have this like direct fiat, direct to NFT purchase, without having to really have you think about the crypto element within it.
Have you been keeping up to date on anything new? Like, so there's the Ordinals NFT, which I think are really interesting because it's BTC. There's a lot of people from BSB that are like buying into this, and it's neat to see how they're kind of figuring this out while also like doing this live.
Yeah, I mean, if there's ever a definition of building an airplane while flying, that's definitely Ordinals. Um, I think it's awesome that there's finally NFTs on Bitcoin and that it's like gotten traction. Um, it's something we're watching. It's something we're exploring and seeing like what happens with that space. I mean, when it initially launched, I mean, there's no marketplaces, and now those marketplaces are starting to kind of emerge and like facilitate some of those transaction purchases. So, I mean, we'll see how much traction it gets over the long term. Um, you know, I think there might be some limitations with ordinals outside of art or like some of the novelty of it. I don't know whether it's going to be a space where like people are going to be building games or anything on it, but it's really cool to see that come about. It's really cool to see the stuff that people are going to build with that is really really fun to watch.
Have you guys thought about making your own market for Ordinals?
I mean, us specifically building a marketplace. So it's funny. We started out, wanting to build a really simple marketplace for people, and then, OpenSea kind of emerged from there, and now there's Blur, of course. But we haven't like looked deeply at building a marketplace. We see ourselves more as a tool for marketplaces to add to their site. So I think it'd be it's a little bit of a different business than doing kind of the payment element of it. Our goal is to be one of the payment options on every marketplace, and maybe make bets, but not really have to try to be or find the winner, but just support everyone. And the winners will come, and hopefully we help facilitate that because we make it just so easy to purchase and allow kind of Web2 people. I mean, Ordinal is a good example where it's like hard. It takes a lot of time to actually look into like how you actually buy one and transact with it. So direct NFT purchases does make sense to some level. So that's something that we potentially will support in the future in terms of like the transaction element, but maybe not as a direct marketplace competing with some of the other names.
Is there a lot of competition for you guys for trying to get in and getting
Let's talk about Moonbase. They are a Miami-based company that's probably your biggest competitor.
The audio, because you said MoonPay, right? Yeah. I mean, of course there's competitors in the space. I mean, we think and believe we are better. I mean, I think one of the big differences is MoonPay is a cryptocurrency company first, rather than an NFT company. So it changes how. So because of that, there's a few things that are different. One, like the type of security they have to go through because they're transacting with cryptocurrency from a regulatory standpoint is much more stringent. And that impacts like acceptance rates. It impacts like how many successful transactions they can actually go through. Whereas when you're just doing NFTs, which is kind of our pure focus, I mean, NFTPay makes sense. We're able to do some unique things around supporting NFT purchases that someone like MoonPay can't really do. And so we've been able to kind of differentiate from them with some of those elements about making it really easy for NFT purchases, making it really easy for users in that space, and solving some of the gripes that people have when they're using MoonPay. I don't know if anyone's ever, if you try to buy an NFT off of OpenSea with MoonPay, I mean, good luck. Some less than 50% of transactions actually go through with them, and most card companies don't actually allow people to transact with MoonPay. So they're there and they're the 1,000-pound gorilla, but there's also some really obvious problems and pain points that users have trying to use them, and we solve them.
Do you have a lot of is there a lot of politics with this? Because I know even certain states will not allow you to buy some cryptocurrency because there's a rock wallet that I use, and one of my I'm in Ohio, which I can buy whatever I want. But some of my friends in other states, I think like in New York and Georgia, they have issues even getting approved.
Yeah, I mean, bit licenses and like money transfer licenses are really challenging element of of the regulatory body. That's why we focus on NFTs, because it's not currencies. So the type of regulatory elements that we need to deal with are different than what you have to deal with if you're transacting cryptocurrency. So in that, I think that's a really important distinction that we've been able to work with. So we're able to transact, and for instance, we're able to transact in New York. We're able to transact, pretty much anywhere that's not sanctioned by the U.S. government, and we're able to do that kind of out of the box. Whereas, like, there's this long, drawn out process that you're also trying to sell ETH, or you're also trying to sell, currencies on top of that. So, yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I was thinking of I think Starbucks recently had a launch, but I don't really understand it. Like, I don't follow a lot of the stuff too much, but it's like tokens where you have what is it? You get points and then you can buy NFTs now through Starbucks, and I'm not sure like if you have to use fiat for that or not.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff Starbucks is doing, I think, is really exciting. It just shows that how the technology can be used and how it's going to be used. I think we're gonna see a lot of success in like, to me, success with NFTs is going to be, 5 years from now, you're going to be like, oh, we do stuff with NFTs, and people are going to go, oh, what's an NFT? And you're going to be like, oh, do you have a Starbucks membership, or do you have like fill in the McDonald's, whatever? And they'll be like, yeah, okay, so you own an NFT, or you own crypto in some form. I think that's I think the a lot of the exciting stuff is really the technology that's underlying like real world value propositions. Like Starbucks is a very much an early adopter with the membership program. So I think that's really cool what they're doing, and it's going to be watching closely what they do going forward.
Did you have any other questions, Dee Dee?
I don't really have any questions about it. I have some figures that I thought were quite interesting. So global searches for what is an NFT is 948,000. So it's just short of 1 million. So it kind of suggests to me that it's still a really market that people are still kind of finding, and buzz out there and people are wanting to know what it is, but it's still quite a small amount. How do you feel? Is that something that you notice yourself? It's like an emerging way to go for people's understanding of what is an NFT. 948,000 searches monthly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, people have said this today, yesterday, even. It feels early, but it feels like we're late to the party in some ways, but we're actually really early, right? Depending on the segment, the industry segment you're talking about. And yeah, the search for NFTs is relatively small, but I think this gets back to like, now the NFT is somewhat of a dirty word at this point in terms of the global, popular perception, but people dig like digital collectibles, which happens to use the technology of non-fungible tokens, right? So, I think like how the definition and how it's being presented, to the public is changing and evolving, and rather than calling something NFT, call it digital collectible, and maybe we might see some other kind of terminology that comes up. So I'm not super worried about like the search and the size of the definition of NFT. I mean, some of the other stats you said, like 280,000 people are asking like, how do I make an NFT? or like something. I mean, that's significant too. I mean, that's a quarter of people searching what is an NFT. So there's obviously a lot of interest in work being done to use the technology behind it. And I think that's going to continue to grow, and the that will then get obfuscated behind, and NFT will get obfuscated behind value added services. Digital collectibles is an easy one. People have been doing that for decades. Gaming is another element, right? Where people aren't gonna gamers probably won't even know they own an NFT, but it's just going to be something that's like built into the next kind of game experience. And game companies will use it not because they want to be Web3, but because it just enhances the experience of the game. And I think we're going to see that a lot more. We're going to see that, and I think that a key part there is separating out NFT as a technology and NFT as it's currently implemented, right? Where the technology presents a lot of opportunities. A lot of them are still, you could say, being evolved, and we still don't know what truly it will be. And then you have NFT as it's currently being implemented, which at different points have been scans, at different points have been pictures of monkeys and pictures of pixelated characters and whatever else. And that's amazing, that's awesome, and like it's great to see at least when people are actually creating value with that stuff. But that's going to be a small part, I think, long term of what we're going to see the tech being built out, from being able to use this innovation around blockchain, this innovation around NFT as well.
And gaming, but you also mentioned about NFT marketplace. So is that something you've built or you're building at the moment? And then by like television and film companies and people like that as well, because obviously gaming is huge, got that other end as well. But yeah, the music side first.
Yeah, it was a little bit choppy, but I think you asked about NFTs and music. I think was the initial part. I mean, I've actually been quite surprised here at Miami NFT Week. A lot of the conversation has been about music, and I think that does seem like a new space. Like we have some projects that we're helping launch. They're defining things like MFT rather than NFT, like a music fungible token. I think that's going to be a really cool spot. And I went to, it was last year, I went to like a launch party for Kevin Smith, which is kind of like Jay and Silent Bob. Like he did a movie, and you could buy an NFT, and you were able to watch the movie through, or like you had a license or something, because you had the NFT. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that in movies and music, where the NFT again is a technology that allows you to get this awesome new experience with a track, or with a from a consumer standpoint, be able to listen to it, or get unique benefits. I don't know, maybe entry into a concert, etc. And then on the other side, you might get some level of the royalties that come from holding this NFT. I think Rihanna's done that with a song. Other people are starting to do that. You have Sound.xyz, that's kind of a launch platform for people who are trying to, artists who want to like raise funding and also want to get their fans like literal ownership over some of the tracks. Even if it's like 2.5% of its royalties, it's still it's something. And it's cool to see that. That's going to be a cool evolution. And the beauty of NFT in this context is, if I want to get out of it, I have a way. I'm not just locked in forever with this like asset or like a movie that I bought on an Apple TV that I can never sell because it's on linked to my account. Maybe I'm tired of Kevin Smith. I want to get rid of that NFT because I don't want to watch that movie again. I can, and I think that tradability is going to be really cool. To see what we do with the music part.
Well, and there's also two things. One, let's talk about secondary markets, because I think that's an unexplored area of NFTs, right? And a lot of people aren't really addressing that, but there's whole secondary markets, whether it's concert tickets, developer conference tickets, like DEF CON. They actually get little tokens, and everybody's like super proud of their physical tokens. Like you're nobody if you don't have a token from being at a DevCon in the past. So that those things also have value on a secondary market, which is very interesting. And then also Reza, Diddy or Ray, can somebody just quickly give a layman's example or layman's term definition of NFTs? Because we do cater to very new people. So anybody who's listening that actually doesn't know what an NFT is, who wants to tackle that? And then let's talk about secondary markets.
My description that I give my friends is really just a digital receipt that you can't change. And depending on what blockchain you use, you can put data on the blockchain, or just like a picture, you can have that up there forever, and no one can really take that away from you.
Ray, you're hilarious. You're a techie, and that's the explanation you give us. Come on, you're way more techie than that. Like, all right, NFT, first of all, stands for non-fungible token. Does anybody want to attack what a non-fungible token is?
Well, I it's like is it like a digital representation of art or a piece of property or a collectible, like a video, as I said, or like a piece of music, like a musical.
Well, let's just start with the word itself. What is fungible versus non-fungible? Reza, you want to tackle that one?
Sure. So fungible is basically the ability to exchange one item with another item, right? And so, generally speaking, when you're paying for something, you don't care if you're giving this dollar bill or that dollar bill, right? That's a fungible currency. Whereas non-fungible is something where you can't interchange it, right? So a Monet painting is non-fungible. Like, you care that you have this Monet and not, like maybe, I don't know, a Picasso or something, right? Like it's totally fundamentally different, each piece, and so that's a difference. Whereas a fungible is like, I don't care if you give me this one or that one, or it's all the same as long as it represents the same amount of value.
That's a good definition. Thank you so much. Yeah. All right. Anybody want to tackle the secondary markets and what an interesting opportunity that creates? That most NFT companies that help mint NFTs, most people that have minted NFTs probably aren't really thinking at that level yet, I would say. So does anybody want to talk on that subject at all? Don't all jump at once. Don't all jump at once. Did I cut out?
Say the last part again.
I just think that secondary markets is an area that most people aren't exploring yet. So if you have minted an NFT, if you're a company that mints NFTs, where do you create value on a secondary or even a third level market? I know when we had even Christian on, the new CEO of InChain group of companies, he was really excited about secondary markets, like fashion, for example. They used the example of Diddy, who was it? Who was that big manufacturer that makes really cheap clothes, like
H&M
or one of those companies? They literally burn millions of dollars worth of product every year. Or if you had a company like Louis Vuitton or Gucci and these high-end quality items, Rolex, those obviously lots of men invest in cars or timepieces, watches. They gain more value over time. So thinking of secondary markets, do you waste product supply, or do you create a secondary market like the DevCon coin I was giving an example for before? Developers that go to this huge conference every year called DevCon, Developers Conference, they get these little minted coins, like much like you get in the military, by the way. And those coins are like such a pride piece, and they actually have value after the initial conference, and people trade them. And again, you're like kind of a nobody. Like you're not really anybody if you don't have your DevCon coin or whatever. Like that whole idea of secondary markets. If you've minted an NFT, if you're a company minting NFTs for others, how do you create secondary or even third level marketplaces value for those assets?
I imagine with, like you were talking about with movies earlier, You know, everyone's looking for a new way to consume media and also have still some ownership of it, you know. So everyone got rid of their DVDs and now we're trying to find them on the second market. But you know, digitally, I think that's the same thing.
Yeah, and
Sure.
I think digitally, it's I mean, in many ways, the largest companies in the NFT space are and frankly, in the crypto space are all secondary markets, you could say. I mean, Binance in the fungible space, OpenSea, Blur, like those are some of the biggest companies in the secondary market, right? Because they provide liquidity, they provide, you know, a safe platform from which to exchange, you know, what you're offering, what you're trying to sell. You know, it seems like, you know, there's a lot more opportunity there. I mean, from a just like a market standpoint, we're seeing a little bit more of like smaller marketplaces that have a niche focus are starting to emerge, like ENS domains, maybe music will have like their own kind of given marketplace. I mean, Art Blocks to some level has their own marketplace for like they have their own way of doing exchanges there. You know, other projects are starting to kind of build mini marketplaces on their own site. So people are seem to like that's it's probably going to fragment a little more than it has from a actual exchange standpoint. Now, how you provide value on the secondary market, a lot of times that's projects when they provide value to their holders, they provide value in the secondary because it makes more people want it and brings up the price to some level. So I think that again is kind of the key, right? Is like the more you create value with what you created with your NFT, the more people are going to want it, the more that NFT has value on the secondary exchange. Um, Other ways you can do that, right? It's like I'm a big fan of Ragsy. She's an NFT artist. Was on like Lego Masters. One of the ways that she created value with her like bite candy art. She was speaking earlier, but I've talked to her about this before. Is like she limits the number she creates. So she's not trying to like mass market these things. She's creating one every incrementally. And so it creates because of that, it creates a lot of value for the holders because there's only a limited number. If you want to buy another one, you really got to bid them up to get someone there to actually part with them. So there's a lot of ways you can do it. I mean, scarcity is an obvious one, value is an obvious one. You know, typically you see in secondaries, you see a bid up when people have airdrops or when people have giveaways or something or an event coming up. You see, I mean, you see this on fungibles like with ApeCoin when right before the other side drop, um, as well as like when you do like a free giveaway or airdrop or something, the value of an NFT goes up pretty notably, and then it usually goes this and then there's that, and you know hopefully the value with your free NFT is more.
Yeah, I'm waiting for more mainstream video game companies to do it right. You know, everything now is a digital download, and they have the ability to take that game away after you pay for it, and then you can no longer play that game. Um, I'm wondering, I guess, how do you feel about like are companies just trying to not even jump in on the whole blockchain game, just because that takes some control away from them?
That does seem to, from my perspective, that does seem to be the biggest limitation of, say, like Fortnite being NFTs. Is that one economically, if I was them, I wouldn't necessarily do that because why am I going to give up some of my money, right? Like I'm making each person buy each skin individually, whereas like if you have an NFT, I can give it to someone. Two, it reduces the level of control over their product. So probably it's going to come from new gaming companies that will drive the hopefully a blockbuster game that uses NFTs, and then it's going to force everyone else involved to kind of get on board at some point. We may also see more closed marketplace type stuff. So NBA Top Shot's an example that they've done that currently, right? Where it's actually very hard to transfer your Top Shot like card, I guess, out of their ecosystem, and they have a closed marketplace that you can trade your NFTs, but you can't really take them out of that ecosystem. So it uses NFTs, but it's not really open in the way that we sort of like traditionally think about NFTs.
Yeah, good points. I love the fact that you brought up limited supply. That obviously drives value, right, of any asset. It's a very important aspect. What is I'm going to reduce my amount of talking here because it's so bad. But Reza, what are some of the, you mentioned some of the NFTs or the NFT artists that you follow. Tell us some of the things that you think are like leading the way in innovation and like what got you into NFTs in the first place. Like give us a little of your backstory and things that you're passionate about.
Yeah. I mean, I'll start with my story a little bit. I've been, I've dabbled or I've known about crypto for a very long time, but wasn't professionally super involved for a while. And in 2020, I lived with a friend who's a crypto hedge fund, LP, I guess. And we started talking very deeply, like started really buying into a lot of what was going on, and explore DeFi, was wanting to get involved deeper, but it didn't really connect with me, DeFi, in the same way that, as things deepened, as the NFT market matured, I was like, oh, like there's this moment where it all clicked. It was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. Like from my experiences in the past, I enjoyed the art. I liked kind of where things were going. And around that time, Mike and I, Mike Krlisky, my co-founder was on earlier, we reconnected, and we both kind of at a transition point where we were talking about like, getting involved in NFTs, getting involved in crypto, and we sort of just started working together, and really with the mission around making NFTs simple. And that's where kind of the genesis was. We sort of had this like thought around making things simple. We really didn't know exactly how that was going to manifest when we first started doing it. And that's kind of the beautiful thing about it, right? Is, hey,
get in here. You're on a global live stream. I'm sleeping with the enemy over here, which he was like, we're not sleeping together. I have a family very much. Thank you very much. Obviously, that's a figurative statement. Guess who is sponsoring this conference that I'm at that I had no idea? Who would be the biggest enemy of those of us that believe in BSV? Anybody? Come on, girls. The biggest enemy.
I was going to say someone from an exchange.
No. With the advent of Bitcoin, who are the two biggest companies in the world that stand to lose the most?
Coinbase.
Ooh.
MasterCard.
MasterCard.
Sleeping with the enemy. And the problem is, I like this guy a lot. You're in charge of innovation, R&D for Latin America?
No, I'm the head. Hold on.
Talk.
I am the head of crypto.
You're talking. Go.
There we go. I'm the head of crypto and blockchain for Latin America and the Caribbean at MasterCard.
Can you guys hear him? Yeah. Sleeping with the enemy. I'm over here like hanging out and talking and liking this guy from MasterCard.
It's not about the enemy. We're all here to grow the pie. At the end of the day, it's your money. Spend
This conversation could get really spicy.
Spend it how and where you want it, the way you want it.
So, my new friends, do you know who DCG is?
Who?
DCG, Digital Currencies Group. Who are they?
Well, they are the, if I'm not mistaken, the holding company or the parent company behind, let's call it CoinDesk. What else we got?
Kraken, I think.
No, I don't know about Kraken, but I do.
Greylock.
Or I was going to say Grayscale.
Grayscale. Largest institutional holder of Bitcoin.
And Genesis.
And Genesis.
And I think I'm missing someone, but I don't remember right now.
Maybe a lot of the companies that have folded lately, I think maybe Celsius, Gemini, I don't know.
Celsius.
No. All right.
Gemini hasn't
And
folded.
what's MasterCard's relationship?
Gemini has not folded.
Well, all right, fair enough.
I don't want to crash your party.
One last question. Come on.
I'm not crashing your party.
What is DCG's relationship to MasterCard?
After you're calling me the enemy, how can I sit here and talk to your thing? Look, I'll catch you later.
Okay, thanks.
Enjoy. Talk to you guys soon.
Bye. I had to put him on the spot because he came over and started talking to me while we were live streaming. I hope he still talks to me after this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense for someone like MasterCard to want to stay relevant and be involved, right? Like, crypto is to some level a risk to their business or a threat to the business. So you either evolve or die in some level. So MasterCard probably has visions of dominating parts of the crypto ecosystem. We'll see whether they succeed on that, but it'll be interesting to see what they do.
Yeah, everyone wants, lower fees. And so that's how everyone got into crypto usually, when they're trying to, but, especially for small business, because it just costs a lot.
I always use MasterCard for high fees when you're a retailer compared to really low minimal fees. So, yes. So, Rez, sorry, I have a question for you if you can hear me. I know a little bit, and I think it's my dodgy UK connection. But have we talked about and how NFTs can prevent counterfeiting? So, for example, to the beach and somebody's trying to flog you a Gucci bag, and it's not a genuine. I see that NFTs can probably help to actually at least minimize that kind of thing. What do you think? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I think there's definitely some value there. Um, there's a few companies that are trying to do that. I haven't looked at them in a while, but I know people are like experimenting with this, and the counterfeit aspect of Gucci, Hermes, all that stuff is like quite an important critical element for the businesses. I haven't seen the implementation. I am subtly skeptical of how you actually do that, because like I actually come from a manufacturing background. Like I one of the first that I lived in South Africa for a number of years, and was one of the first that made $100 Android phones in Africa. And so I know what they do in China. I know a lot of the manufacturing ways, and like, yes, could you like put a QR code if it has some verification of the purse? Yeah, but what prevents someone from taking that same QR code and putting on 100 bags or whatever it is? So I think there's still more work to be done with like what that verification looks like. Like, do you need RFID tags? Do you need something else that sort of like is built into it? To like really put it like as a foolproof thing that you can't just sort of it can't be half baked. I think that's key. But the authenticity piece, the verification piece, I think there's elements there that can be used for preventing counterfeiting that will be probably someone's going to crack that, and hopefully make a pretty sizable amount of money working with these big brands doing it.
Yeah, that was a good thing to bring up, Diddy. That reminded me of with farming. A lot of people want to track produce through that, and I think that's actually pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I mean that's really important, right? Because I think I saw a stat. There's more organic goods sold in the U.S. than there is produced. Which, what does that mean? That means that some percentage of them are not organic, but they're being sold as organic. So,
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, is a good point that you've just. In the UK, we've just had the Genetic Technology Precision Breeding Act of 20 passed. So that's, people are now sort of, we buy organic because we don't want our genetically modified and genetically engineered. So that is a really good point that you brought up there. Completely.
What is the act, Diddy? Tell us a little bit about that. That's very interesting.
Well, Genetic Technology Breeding Act of 2023 basically means you will get precision bred or organisms. So they're going to be cattle and plants that are basically genetically engineered. So they're lab mod and will be put out onto kind of consumer market, and more people are wanting or because they don't want basically genetically modified food. I mean, in Europe, but it's just an act that's come out in the last few days in Britain, and I know there was a bit of an uproar about it on Twitter. I thought I'd mention it because, as you said about, you know, tracing foodstuffs and trays and seed and everything like that, really, to make sure that you're getting organic food, something where actually that could probably help quite a lot, because if it's being in some modern biotechnology and you know, genetically modified organism, and self don't want any of that at all, then you know, you will panic, and you can trace that through the NFT. I think, I mean, that's how I would imagine it in the long run, you know.
Yeah, so supply chain and logistics is another, and probably one of the best use cases, that in gaming, that really stood out to me when I came across Bitcoin and blockchain technology. Because if you can say, you know, Chilean sea bass, first of all, I've been told that that's not even a real thing, but if it is a real thing, you want to be able to prove it was you know, caught in this one area of Chile on this day and this time by this man on this fishing boat or woman, and then it went on, you know, it was preserved at a certain temperature and kept as fresh as it could while it shipped across a cargo ship to, you know, United States or wherever it went. You can literally track every piece of that along the supply chain line and verify its origin and its actual what's the word I'm looking for? It's legit, right? There's a friend's company here in Boca that was made in USA certified, and the family behind Bacardi, they're in Puerto Rico, and they came to my friend Adam and they said, we lose millions of dollars every year because somebody takes a bottle of Bacardi. These restaurants and these bars will take a bottle of Bacardi and they'll use it, and then they'll keep refilling it with cheaper liquor or even water, but they sell it as Bacardi and charge premiums, right? So if you guys could find a way to verify where it was sourced, when it was shipped, the employees that shipped it, every single thing along the supply chain line that is put on blockchain, timestamped, immutable record, and shows the provenance, we would pay you millions of dollars because you'd save us, you know, 10 times that. So that kind of concept is extremely important.
Interesting you brought up alcohol. They do it a lot with whiskey and vodka, and specifically vodka over here. That is a very interesting point that you brought up. But yeah, anything that's artificially modified, if you don't want to go down that road and you want to make sure it is organic and it is the real deal, then I think let's do that. Yeah.
All right. I know I promised everybody that we'd keep it to an hour, and it doesn't seem like we're getting a lot of public comments or people wanting to join the chat. So I think I'll ask everybody that's joined our show today, are there any closing statements, anything else you'd like to share about you or your companies, or anything you'd like to share before we wrap?
I mean, I'll start. I mean, I think we had a really, fruitful and interesting conversation today. So, thank you for having me on. I mean, if you're, anyone on the live stream is looking to accept credit cards and need a custodial wallet solution for NFT launches, projects, marketplaces, etc. Please look us up, NFTPay.xyz. We're on a mission to bring in 1 billion people into Web3. So, join us in that. Let's build together.
I like the mission.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us, Reza. One more, two quick questions before you run. I don't think anybody asked. Do you build on Ethereum yourself, or what blockchain do you use at NFTPay?
Yeah, so we're pretty much agnostic. So we support, at this point, 10 different blockchains and more coming. So pretty much any EVM that people work on. So Ethereum, Polygon, Avalanche. We have stuff like Arbitrum and stuff and whatnot that we can support as well. We do Algorand, we do Solana, we do several others beyond that. So, we really try to cover wherever people are buying NFTs. We want to be there to support them. And, and generally we add as we get projects and interest. So, we'll build out new support, when we have partners for that.
Awesome. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us today. I know we threw this together last minute, and you're quite gracious and very insightful. So, NFTPay.xyz.
Yep. NFTPay.xyz, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.